Hi and welcome to another tutorial video. In this tutorial video I'm going to be talking about malware and the different types of malware that you need to know about. So first of all, what is malware? So malware is the umbrella term given to a variety of intrusive or hostile pieces of software. So this is any software that you wouldn't want to have on your computer because it might be annoying or it might be genuinely harmful. And malware can take many different forms. And the types you need to know about are viruses, Trojans, spyware, and adware. So those are the types of malware that I'm going to be going through in this video: viruses, Trojans, spyware, and adware. So first of all then, let's take a look at viruses. So a virus is a type of computer malware which is usually installed on a computer system because a user is tricked into installing it by a attacker using some sort of social engineering technique. And they're tricked into downloading and running an executable file on their computer which contains the virus. So a virus is usually installed by a user who has been tricked into downloading and installing an executable file on their computer. So most viruses require user intervention, so the user downloading and installing an executable file, for example, for them to be installed on a user system. However, there are some viruses called worms which are able to self-propagate, meaning that they can install themselves on a user system through security exploits without the user needing to do anything or perform any action. So some viruses can self-propagate, meaning that they can install themselves on a computer system without user intervention. Okay, so let's now take a look at Trojans. Now, a Trojan is a type of malware which is disguised as legitimate software. So users are again typically tricked into installing a Trojan using social engineering techniques, and the difference here is that the distinction here is that a Trojan will a Trojan will appear to be a legitimate program, so a legitimate useful piece of software that the user would want to download. And actually that software may actually perform the function that the user wants it to do, but included in that download is a piece of malware. So Trojans are disguised as legitimate software. And another important point about Trojans is that unlike worms, so worms are a type of virus, as we mentioned a minute ago. Unlike worms, they cannot self-replicate. So Trojans, they're disguised as legitimate software, and they require user intervention to be installed, and they can't replicate themselves and then self-propagate to other systems. Okay, so let's now take a look at spyware. So spyware is a form of malware which is used to collect personal information from a user's computer without their knowledge. So spyware is often installed on computers by, again, deceiving the user using some social engineering techniques, and it can also be bundled alongside legitimate software either by third parties or by the developers of legitimate software to gather additional data about their users. This is used to collect data about a computer user. So it can be used by attackers to gain passwords, for example, from users' computers, or by companies. So a lot of some online based companies have been known to gather personal information to allow advertisers to target individual adverts at people more effectively. So finally then, let's take a look at adware. So adware is any software which automatically renders adverts to generate income for the author of the software. So some adware is legitimate software that a user might install deliberately. So for example, some mobile applications have render ads to users to generate income for the developers. And other adware is malware which renders intrusive adverts to the user without their consent. So adware renders adverts to the user. Some adware can be legitimate applications that a user might want to install on their computer and they meant to install on their computer, and others can be intrusive and unwanted software. And adware can be categorized as spyware. So this is where the adware is sending information back to the developers of the software, which about what type of user is looking at the advert, for example. And that's why it's categorized as spyware, because in that case it is spying on the user. So the effects of malware can range from simply displaying annoying messages to the user, all the way up to deleting files, corrupting files, encrypting files, or even crashing the computer and things like that. So there's a wide spectrum of impacts that installing malware on a computer system can potentially have. Okay, so now we're just going to take a brief look at the ways in which we can prevent malware infecting user systems. So the first way, which you're probably all aware of already, is anti-malware software. You've probably got it installed on your computer at the moment. And users can install this software, which will attempt to stop malware being installed on the system, and also it will try and minimize the harmful effects of malware that is installed, and also attempt to remove malware that's already installed. The second method of prevention that I've got down here is probably the most important, I think, is awareness. So users should be made aware of the threats posed by different types of malware so that they can take measures like only installing software from trusted sources to prevent the spread of malware. So awareness there. And then also another way we can prevent the spread of malware is by using a system of automatic security updates. And for most computer users, it's a good idea to forcefully apply the latest security patches to their system to make sure that they don't fall victim to exploits in older versions of computer software. So I just want to come back to awareness for a second, because that is the big one in my opinion, and because most malware we've discussed relies on this social engineering to spread and to be installed on users' computers, if users know how to spot these techniques being used, they're far less likely to fall victim to it. So it's really important that users are educated and aware of the risks posed by different types of malware. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this tutorial video. Hope you found it useful, and thanks for watching.